We're going to finish now with our final poet of the evening, Leanne Brown, a name that I think is, again, familiar to many of you, who is the author of Other Archer, also appearing in translation by Stéphane Bouquet, author of In the Laurel's Court, Crowns of Charlotte, The Sleep That Changed Everything, and Polyverse. Leanne Brown, which won the 1996 New American Poetry competition, selected by Charles Bernstein. In 1989, Leanne Brown founded Tender Buttons Press, dedicated to publishing experimental women's poetry. She's taught at many kind of a wide range of institutions, Brown, Naropa, Bard, amongst others, and held fellowships with teachers and writers, Yarrow, McDowell, the International Centre for Poetry in Marseille here in France, the Howard Foundation, and she was also the Judith E. Wilson Poetry Fellow at Cambridge. She lives in New York. She's taught us today that poems are everywhere. She's talked about writing, kind of thinking about Bernadette Mayer in every way that we can imagine, and really just about being present in the present moment. So thank you so much for reading for us.
Thank you, Rona. Thank you so much for inviting me and for coming, and I love the pleasure of reading to you. I want to start with a poem for Joe Brainerd after Daniel reading that beautiful letter. It's sort of the same moment. Poem for Joe, written around Joe Brainerd's 50th birthday. I've always wanted to write you a poem, so here it is. I loved watching your eyes tonight when you read your poems for Jimmy Schuyler. I love the way you walk, your long legs and arms swinging, blue cashmere fast off into the cold night after pouring me wine. I love your whippet pictures, your pansies and Nancy, all your flowers and the line drawings of boys in underwear with that little bulge, or their cocks actually out, arching over the thigh like the one in Alan's bathroom. I love when you brought me Campari and soda with lemon down by the lake, and enough lemon to make my hair blonder last summer, or was it the summer before? I love floating on rafts quietly like water bugs, trying not to get too wet in the sun. I love your style. I love your interview in Little Caesar magazine. I remember that you're from Oklahoma. I love the shape of your head, a fine skull, and that you've got some white shirts at New Republic. I love your soft kiss, goodbye, or hello. That was to Joe. And Joe gave me the little Tender Buttons logo as a gift, this little pansy. I have a few cards if anybody wants a Joe Brainerd. This is a present beau epithalamion. I thought I had to read one of my Oulipian poems in Paris after Harry Matthews did all those great epithalamion, combining two people's names when they got hitched. So this is for Stacy Doris and Chet Wiener. A present beau epithalamion for Chet and Stacy. New Northwest seas win a toast by Torah's code. The search of when, why, what, and who twine, for these wedded threads consent. A corona on them. In this said tryst, ecstasy chases. Inner irises arise. Tread the hewn air, raid and redress addicted chinaware. Dish oasis rodeo odes, retain net snow. Io's roster, attendants to the wedded two, Isis and Osiris of Ohio and Rio, switch hitters as new acts. Wrens, cats, hares, swans, toads, and rhinos. Circe's sows wrest the doorway to go to. It's a sin not to attend this due. The sirens act tender, ridden between the coast and star. Drawn, redrawn, dressed in stately restated earth. Earth's sun hint indented her north by northwest. She stinted and said, "I. No AIDS, warts, witches, windy cindies, nor chinchy titty rats dare send hindrance nor drat this tract. You T&T renters wade in strewn ways, stay tenderly tinted in dense heat, arid or wetter, the way a wine or name becomes an intense one. A best behest in you says, do it now, do it newer." And I want to thank Stacy for introducing me to Sabine Macher. I'm going to invite her up to read 2 poem translations. I think it was the first time it was ever translated. We think it was in the 90s. Come on up. Sabine matchmaked us. I mean, Stacy matchmaked Sabine.
Yes.
You said it was an action poetry? Or I thought it was Java. Does anybody know where it was published?
I don't know, actually.
Oh, that series. What did
I
find out?
got it out of an old computer. It was like I never use it anymore, but I still keep it plugged because it has things that the other one can't read. So, fortunately, thank you.
Okay, so I will read. Thank you for translating. I'm going to read Heavy Earthly Diadems. Compact body, heavy from falling asleep after work. Cute sun touches the tops of buildings, something falls. Magenta dropping blossoms blur, hurt up, heat up, while sore heather sleeps. A plunging comforter, stained, still comforts. Open or shut his body of light. Our quick, stuck duet hit us with, don't worry, soft.
Diadème, ciel lourd terrestre. Corps compact, lourd de s'endormir après le travail. Coquet soleil touche le haut des immeubles. Quelque chose tombe. Versant du magenta, des fleurs barbouillent, s'échauffent, tandis que Violette, endolorie, dort. Un doudou tombant, souillé, console toujours, ouvert ou fermé. Son corps de lumière, notre duo coincé d'une crampe, nous frapper avec « Ne t'en fais pas, doux ».
The other one is pregnant C, the letter C. Pregnancy. Pregnancy. Subway company, a bag full of books and bottles. The poem, bottle. Seeing men as utterly other for once, slipping into cat language, lean to another song. Crackling static, dropping things, writing to remind umbrellas to open. Irascible fetish represents a world. Queen of the scene, rereading, not on my time you don't.
Grossesse. Des compagnons de métro, un sac plein de livres et des bouteilles. Le poème Bouteille. Voyant des hommes comme tout à fait autres pour une fois, glissant dans l'angle des chats, se pencher vers une autre chanson. Statique craquelante, lâchant des choses. Écrivant pour appeler au parapluie de s'ouvrir, l'irascible fétiche représente un monde. Reine de la scène, relisant pas, surmontant, tu le fais.
And then there's the little time capsule, a little questionnaire.
Oui, parce que Stacy,
What?
should I explain how?
Oh, sure, yeah, yes, please.
Okay. Well, Stacy asked me to also ask some questions to Leanne Brown, and well, I'm so happy to be here to be able to say Stacy's name, and also thank you, Chet. Thank you very much, Leanne.
Thank you.
For writing me 2 days ago. You're the time capsule. I'm going to read the questions in well, it's not, well. I was sort of apologizing for these questions, but
No
anyway.
apologies necessary.
Yes. Well, Stacy would just smile, you know, like she would think. Donc, j'avais posé des questions. Ah oui, je sais même plus où c'est. Trois questions qui avaient à voir avec le sommeil. J'ai demandé comment... J'arrive plus à trouver la page en français, pardon. Comment j'ai dormi Non, ça c'est déjà ta réponse. It's already your answer. Well, it was about, well, basically, sleeping, eating, and how you dress. I mean, because we can't always be in the nude. Oh, sorry. But this is French. Yes.
Okay, how I slept. Alone. Just that one day. Under thick layers of blankets. I was being sad. Okay, alone. Under thick layers of blankets because it had just turned cool. Under a quilt from North Carolina. And what they call a mink blanket in Chinatown, made of some kind of synthetic with bright red and orange peacock on one side and big tacky roses on the other. It's a very comfortable bed that I've only slept in for 9 months, which belonged to my great-grandmother, Dora Margaret Evans Woolfoot Draper Dunlop. Dreamt a lot, but can't remember, too weighted down by the blankets. What I'm wearing, a long black skirt wraparound given to me by wonderful red-haired friend Michelle Voisky, with a long-sleeve polyester turtleneck, which was once my mother's. Little dark blue coat, black stockings, leather shoes with big silver buckles. These can work as teaching clothes and still function as New York City basic black. Cat glasses. That's what's left out, the threads that should be in the spaces where the stockings are starting to run. What I ate today, coffee with milk and sugar, 2 pieces of chocolate cake at Louise Bourgeois' house. For dinner, bok choy lover with noodles tied in knots at Tian Garden, and late night snack at Orchard Street Turkish takeout, Baraket, my favorite, lamajun, a lamb roll-up grilled on pita bread, $2. And add this if you want. I dreamed last night that I received a very special package. I went flying, falling downwards through 4 or 5 stories of a vertical ladder staircase, barely touching the rungs to get to the front door. The delivery person was an old woman with glasses who apologetically, but in a business-like way, told me to pay $12 duty on it because it came out from a printer in Asia. When I opened that brown package, I found it was proofs and plates from someone else's book, not mine. There was a little plastic or shell comb inside that images could go on, and I took a few out and sealed it back up to send to the printer somewhere in the Midwest. It was a big artsy coffee table book like a box, and I thought it was ugly. It was brown with glass doors and sentimental pseudo-feminist stuff on it that some people go for in a big way. 90s. Thank you. Now I'm gonna, I've asked for Stéphane Bouquet to come and read 3 poems that he translated. I'm just going to read the one, What is the Grass? And I'd like you to read the What is the Grass and the 2 others, if that's okay. I'm just
You're not going to read the English.
I'm going to do what?
You're going to skip the English.
Oh, you have the English?
No, I don't have the
Okay,
English.
so I only have the English for What is the Grass, that's why. I'm trying to cover my ass.
I guess I have the English. No, I don't.
That's okay. I want to hear you read it in French. So I'm just going to read the, What is the grass? What is the grass, the child asks, bringing it to me in handfuls. We stop at the Walt Whitman service area. No sign of him, save some democratic vistas and drum taps on a plaque near the Mickey D's. Let's go find the grass, I say to my 2-year-old beauty. And we pick one blade from the median, then back we go into the forever car. Hours later, pulling into Richmond, she, half awake in my arms, mumbles, let's go find the grass.
C'est quoi l'herbe? Demande l'enfant m'en remportant par poignée. Nous nous sommes arrêtés sur l'aire de service Walt Whitman. Aucun signe de lui, sinon quelques perspectives démocratiques et battements de tambour sur une plaque près du McDo. Allons chercher de l'herbe, dis-je à ma beauté de 2 ans. Nous en ramassons un brin sur le terre-plein, puis remontons dans la voiture éternelle. Bien plus tard, nous entrions dans Richmond, elle, à moitié réveillé dans mes bras, marmonne, allons chercher de l'herbe. So I'm gonna read 2 poems in French. Pour les gens qui lisent le français, en fait, j'ai pas le livre ici parce que j'ai refait les traductions et voilà, je pense que c'est une meilleure version. Donc je pourrais vous les envoyer. Que la version publiée, il faudrait I should republish a new volume of my translation. Avant de brûler, qu'il danse avec nonchalance le peuple homard. Nous avons croisé Craig à la triple boucle du Space Cowboys dans son costume à rayures. Un halo se dilate autour de ma tête et puis se rétracte. Nous sommes d'autres elfes dansant frénétiquement sur le sol du désert sous des champignons oranges méduses sur notre planète de poussière blanche et froide. Rien à craindre ce soir. Ça te traverse, n'est-ce pas? Sois certaine de t'être bien arrimée au sol avant de... Je veux que la phalène géante vole jusqu'à l'homme et lui foute le feu. Je veux que le bus fourrure jaune chat se mette avec la voiture requin-borgne. Faire mon lit, encore une tente. Faire une pièce, hôtel. Peut-être près de la porte. Travailler sur mes grands projets jouissifs et changeants, roulant comme des bouloches de cachemire depuis les montagnes de Max Patch. Offrir des offrandes d'impro chantées à tous. Louer leurs détails splendides, réfléchir dessus dans ton miroir. Prendre soin l'une de l'autre. Apprendre à se soigner en soignant les autres. Pouvoir magnétique de ses mains, résonance sauvage de mon corps sorciérant. Excité par des sphères musicales, ouvertes et affirmant que mon amour est le mien, firmament pour les fées, de nouvelles chansons arrivent. Aujourd'hui, Tony dort, dit « J'ai tout retourné. Sa portée est magnifique, il m'aime, je sais que, aussi pénible que ce soit, cela va s'accroître. Des temps difficiles vont venir, je sais. Alors je veux être forte, en ces temps d'abondance. Quel merveilleux enfant tu auras. Mon amour adore l'aurore. Je suis la lune. Nous sommes faits l'un pour l'autre. Peuple champignon très aérien se marient entre eux, se marient à nous. Le 5e élément est le vide, fontaine blanche d'énergie. De l'autre côté, sans effroi, nous entrons, tenons le feu. Les 2 tourbillons se lèvent en spirale depuis les humains. Avec une tendresse affectueuse, avec une vaste séparation, avec étirement et bâillement, jusqu'à ce que la nuit nous sépare. And last poem, Paradis penché, Tilt Heaven. Je pensais achever la dévastation, mais chaque jour elle se reproduit et doit être mise en évidence. Mardi, le paradis en entier penché dans la lumière, hors de la nuit. Mais mardi, tout ce que j'ai pu écrire, ce fut World Trade Center détruit, tour jumelle effondrée, et transcrire ionisé, incroyable. Ils perdirent leurs chaussures en fuyant le feu, détails et icônes et gens oblitérés. Les idées se brouillent, un charnier, la ville nous est devenue toxique. Nous devons trouver un chemin vers la douceur amère. Tournoyer, tournoyer, ce sera de joie. Tournoyant, tournoyant, nous finirons droit. Je suis un shaker à l'envers. C'est insupportable. Je respire dans la douleur comme si j'étais en une sorte de travail horrible, improductif. Un homme sur Victory Boulevard se tient prêt à se battre. Dans un champ vide, j'ai peur de ce que nous allons faire.
I think I'm gonna read 2 more. One's longer than the other. It's from the great volume that Olivier did about Frank O'Hara, Lovers of My Orchards, and I stuck 2 poems in there. So, I referenced Frank O'Hara's poem earlier today, You Are Gorgeous and I'm Coming, so I wrote, You are not gorgeous and I'm coming anyway. You are not gorgeous and I'm not getting to know you any better. I feel broken into, I feel drenched, dreamed with the Woolworth's worth of dime store socks, photographed and networked up the raccoon's nest, not here in the city, but in the Ile de la Cité, hungry for some foreign country in the middle of my jury duty crawl into bed, exhumed from Bjork's champagne toast to all of Iceland's fairy cultures, recorded as the door swings open and shut. Of course you're gorgeous, and I am coming. It happens every day. Then I fall into the crack again, spattered with immediate boredom. Feeding 2 boys, not one, and neither of them hitting home, transposed to Trappist ringer's Nick, called this morning from Assisi. Last words on the phone card, as the phone card ran out, blinking from 600 lira down. See you in the next life. And the last one is written on the occasion of when I got to read at the MoMA for a Frank O'Hara event, and thought I had it made, but yeah, I did. I did for a brief moment. Okay. And then this is my Frank O'Hara portal. It's called Portal. All right. On the occasion of the day that I was asked to read some poems of Frank O'Hara's plus one of my own in the MoMA sculpture garden, where I once heard the electrified cactus piece of John Cage on another shiny day long ago. If I only had a pen, I would write down everything I see this morning. A perfect Frank O'Hara day, says Vincent, sparkling, and I agree. I even saw a construction worker on 8th Avenue on the way to the subway. Birds singing, blue sky. Maureen says, swooping in an arc like Frank. Try not to love people more than they love themselves. It'll do you in. Maria wants to jump in the fountain, where Ginny was just sitting on that marble bridge over it, blue and blonde mohawk all about the hair. But now she's gone. Headlong is how I describe what Frank does to me. But of course it's more than that. Frank permission slips to include everything in poetry, and that everything changes, is subject to change, and is more impermanent. Yet again her worn gold slipper dangles, blue watch, and almost empty Coke. The many personas of each of us shortly depart the garden effusive Philip with a wide brim hat. I feel you do know him, he says. He went to school every morning on the bus for 12 years. A woman in pearls slowly chews a sandwich, smuggling food in her bag, a salon called Blow. David, why did you so sadly go and leave me not holding the bag of payback? Your arrangements are incomplete, yet maybe somehow we'll be thrown down like a samurai. Cast flowers like swords into a vase. Let them fall how they may. How was it? Asked the blue-shirted workman with eyes and engagement across the place. I gave him thumbs up, like Miranda would. I melt after readings, kind of like Dali's watches. Still running on the energy of time, Alex invites us up to Blowing Rock, but I'll be off to ancient Rome like the empty building across the street next to Il Gattopardo. Never was so hungry as when the spinning toy he rescued from the lake spun like a top of poetry, as a pink plastic Japanese cat. Don't wind it too tight or it'll break, she will cry. Lucy Sykes was already in the next beauty chair when I got there. Her eloquent elegance left before we could speak as I was putting on my spinning eyes in the bathing Zimmer after the reading. Sweet sparrows of prevarication perch on the garden wire's mesh chair as a white disc tilts to the sun target. I am decompressing from the portal of reading Frank's front-loaded poems, but it's not getting any better. Frank, I love you. How you never really saw why you're not a painter, irreducible, but just write about it until you have a poem in the end, and so then you are a poet. The sardines are underneath the painter's paint, but erased words are not underneath your oranges. Material lifted from the typewriter phone call. Would you have loved cell phones or lose them like I do? The floaty weather is not too hot, as Kynaston McShine was said to have feared. Neon in the sculpture garden and 2 red-haired girls with blank sketch pads are ready to go. Maria Montez buys me a coffee and a glass of wine at the same time, which is just what I need. Vincent invited Frank O'Hara to dinner when he was 5 years old. A few blue tresses on a young teen boy before me take to the itchy and scratchy building. Douglas had said to the cabbie, and he knew where to go, Saatchi and Saatchi. I loved the yellow post-it note on the door when you grab each other. In the refrigerator, one says all vodka, the other bourbon. Surrogate, profligate lifestyle. I miss something. I sometimes miss, but now mostly divert it into art. I'm melting on the phone to the Good World bar in the back of the now non-existent post office, always reconstructing that moment of demure desire. Cucumber, berserker, and library, now I know where I am. A sparrow pecks at one of the melting Dali clocks on the island, where Ben attempts to decompress bright orange and yellow tinny pumps under a Parisian metropolitan archway, striped grid out to the human field. A penny on the ground, a workman's silhouette gets up and shifts. A boy leans his head up against a black amorphous sculptural profile and hears the day lady died, probably for the first time. I must find my say it straight list poem of I ams, but for now I am mannerist yet again, so do it right or it'll break and she will cry. Poets write poems while painters talk, but painters don't paint while poets talk in bars or elsewhere. And despite me stealing the Dymaxian's very small pencil, I have a never-ending fascination with a living pod, a bioarchitecture and reading the heart poem in your pocket, reverie, and on the subway and all that. Even FOH had to buy TP, which I have to do on the way home, but I can do it in the fluorescent Rite Aid right down under the London townhouse apartments where John Ashbery has his pied-à-terre. And I never see him there despite living half a block away. He must be in the country or on a train somewhere. I heard he orders takeout from Bombay Talkie, now gone too, and must walk past the Stone Lion my husband as a boy, now my kid, always pats. Knowing it's alive, each time we pass, it puts their small hand into its open stone mouth. Someone has sprayed a brown strip of a kind of bat mask across its eyes, but now it's gone. And on again, years later, I finally finished this poem. I was so high on life that day from reading poems in the MoMA garden, then ran straight to the member's desk, program in hand with my name emblazoned on it alongside other poets and artists of the day to obtain my long-awaited validation, less expensive artist pass, access, my rightful artist pass, but I was told, no, you do not practice an art collected by this museum. where just today I picked up a heavy black dial-up poem telephone receiver from the past and hear Joe Brainerd's poem as plain as day say to me, I remember through time. But is this not a poem? Even though he's a visual artist and Dinah Prima gave me advice on what drugs to take in case of a life and death revolution. But this is not a poem. This is a revolutionary letter. This is a long poem, sorry. And Marcel Duchamp leaves puns on discs for anemic cinema. But this is not a poem. It is an anagrammatic discussion. And Robert Smithson leaves a big pyramidal pile of language, but that's not a poem. It's on graph paper. And he's not here to see the spiral jetty reemerge, the greatest spiral concrete poem ever. And I heard Allen Ginsberg sing a hymn to Shiva. And that is not a poem. That is a song accompanied by harmonium. Even though I Am With You in Rockland is written today in white neon light all over the third floor window, but that is not a poem. It is a neon sculpture. If I paint my poems on a canvas, am I a painter? Will I finally get rid of this horrible case of those who can do, those who can't teach? Or whatever the powers that be in such institutions that purport to collect modern art? Are they mothers of modern art yet deny the poem's art? MoMA needs to read Frank O'Hara's Why I'm Not a Painter again when he says he writes about oranges and how terrible life is and the absence of the orange at all. It is impossible. Rhyme has nothing to do with art at all. It is art to do what he does with those words. He makes oranges do what the sardines did in the end. Disappear and turn around. Reconfigured in absence. The poem cannot be sold to the highest bidder. Is that why the mother of modern art is not interested in art, immaterial, made form made from something that belongs to everybody, to nobody, language, verbiage, vernacular, words. In the absence of architecture, there is an architecture of absence. All the poems I never finished reached through the emptied holes in the half-century approaching impossible to say what difference I can make, but I must protest. Poetry is art. Actually, we got poetry. Poets can get the artist pass now. We did it. We did it.